Welcome to the first episode of Personally Speaking, K2's new podcast series. I'm Emma Kerslake, Global Client Experience Manager at K2 Corporate Mobility, and over the coming weeks and months, I'll be sitting down with the people behind K2 that bring the Because It's Personal ethos to life and enable us to offer the personal touch to partners and clients around the globe. This episode will focus on K2's epic Nepal Expedition, which took place towards the end of last year. So today I'm joined by Taryn Whitfield and Natasha Wannenburg, two of the Nepal Expedition team members, to hear about their personal experiences of working and walking through the trip of a lifetime. But before we jump into the questions, could I ask you both to briefly introduce yourselves? Taryn, let's start with you.
Thank you, Emma. I'm Taryn Whitfield. I have been working with K2 now for about 11 years, and I lead our global advisory arm of the business, so working with clients on all things global mobility.
Perfect. Thanks, Taryn. And Natasha, on to you.
Thanks, Ems. So I'm Natasha Wannenburg. I've been with K2 for about 3 years. I started in finance and then moved over to operations. Very, very grateful to be part of the K2 family.
Okay, great. So thanks for that, Natasha. So I'm going to start with you with the questions. What were your thoughts when the Nepal expedition was first announced?
Well, firstly, I thought it was crazy, but I was very excited. In my opinion, I thought it was a bit crazy, but an amazing cause. So I was really excited.
Fantastic. And what about you, Taryn? Did you have the same feelings?
I think for me, Emma, it was a combination of thoughts that I had. So a little bit like Natasha, I thought it was an amazing opportunity when I first heard about it, sort of an experience of a lifetime, really. But I also thought it was an incredibly generous thing for an organization, and certainly for K2 to offer to its people, really, to get involved in globally. Certainly something that no organization I'd ever worked for or with had done before.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very unique idea, special to K2. So I guess tying into the next question is, why did you apply for the trip?
Well, I honestly just wanted to be part of something amazing. And as Taryn said, the cause is absolutely amazing. And being part of something like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So it's definitely the initiative that drew me in, and then also just the challenge behind it.
And what about you, Taryn?
I think for me, in some sense, it was similar to Natasha's thoughts around, having the opportunity to really firsthand support our charity initiative. And we'd heard, a bit about the work that we were doing for the building the school in Brazil. So actually being able to be actively involved in that was something that I thought was an incredible opportunity. And then secondly, I think to have an experience where you're out of the workplace, but you are doing something with colleagues, and not colleagues that you necessarily would be working with, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an incredible kind of ballot period. We had obviously 80 people, over 80 that signed up. So that when the moment happened, when your names were picked during the ballot, how did you feel and what went through your head?
Taryn, would you like to go first?
Oh, yes. I think the number of things went through my head. I don't know what it was like for you, Natasha, but first of all, I think it took a few seconds or a few minutes to sink in. It was that sort of sense of disbelief. I couldn't believe it, really, a bit like when you enter a competition and, everyone probably felt similar in that they just sort of thought, well, they'll enter, have a go, but, it would never be me. And then I think the realization sort of sunk in, and some of the excitement, but also the realization that, it really was a big trip.
Yeah, well, for me, I was completely shocked. I still remember working from home that day, and we had a Teams call with the ballot. And I really did not think it was going to happen. And then, to my surprise, I was the chosen one. And I had a little celebration by myself. And then I realized that I had my camera off. So I quickly had to put it back on again and then try to have another celebration. But just after having this amazing realization that, wow, I was chosen, it also, like Taryn said, it just sunk in, and I was like, oh my word, this is actually happening. It was very exciting.
Brilliant. Yeah, there was some really beautiful moments. I mean, we obviously ran the 3 ballots, and just seeing the people's faces when they got picked was absolutely lovely. So I guess moving on to the preparation period, obviously for both of you, it would have looked quite different. So I'll start with you, Natasha. How was the preparation period, and did you get cold feet at any point?
Well, to be honest, preparing for this, I didn't know what to expect at all. I've never done an expedition like this before, so I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. But I was just happy to be a part of this, and I was willing to do anything. So preparing for Everest Base Camp, it had its ups and its downs. In my opinion, the physical preparation was really fun. It's not just about going for as many hikes as possible. It's also about improving different stuff like your cardiovascular strength and your muscle strength and different stuff. So it's an all-rounder preparation. So in that sense of being different types of exercises. So it wasn't just one thing. So I started with CrossFit in the beginning of last year, and I must admit, if it wasn't for that, I would have had a terrible time. So that definitely helped in preparing. And getting cold feet, not at all. I can say that in all honesty. At the beginning, it still seemed ages away. And one day I woke up and I saw we have a week to go, and then we were hopping on a plane. So yeah, I just started to get some butterflies, but no cold feet from my side.
Good. And how about you, Taryn? Any cold feet from your end?
Not cold feet as such, Emma, but I think, the preparation probably for Natasha and the team that climbed to base camp was, physically there was a lot of preparation, and that was, probably quite tough perhaps for some. There wasn't as much of that preparation, I don't think, for those that were doing the work, but there were other things. So, just thinking about preparation from a work point of view, and those that were going to cover for us while we were out. The good thing was that we had a great lead time, so there was a lot of time to prepare and to think about all these things. Time for those who needed to get fit and focus on the physical side, but also for others to think about preparing perhaps family at home. Cover from a work perspective. So overall, I think there was the time to prepare, and part of that was mindset as well. So no, I didn't get cold feet, not once. I did think to myself a couple of times, "Oh goodness, have I got everything covered? And will it all be okay?" More so at home than at work, but it all came together.
Absolutely, because it was a long time. I mean, 18 days is a long time to spend away from family and friends and stuff. So it was a big undertaking for you both. So kind of sticking on the theme of physical, Taryn, obviously the volunteering work maybe didn't have as such a physical element as the trek did, but how much of an effort did you find the volunteering work?
I think the volunteering work, the great thing with what we did, Emma, was that there was a little bit of choice around what you could get involved in, whether it be indoors or outdoors, whether it be sort of some of it was all strenuous to a degree, but some of it perhaps a little bit more in some ways versus others. So I think there was a little bit of choice, and everyone just really fell into doing what they were doing, and were really game on to give whatever it was, whether it be painting or digging or, sort of excavating, give it a go. Whereas I think probably not speaking for you, Natasha, you probably cover it, but you all had to be prepared for the trek. So for me, I didn't find it too difficult, too strenuous, but it was all day work, outdoors, and it was physical.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's repetitive work as well, so it can be difficult day after day to do.
Yes, and I think, in that respect, you're absolutely right. Having the group and having the encouragement and the morale, and that all really, really helped to kind of keep people motivated when they were painting all day or they were digging a hole all day. So for us, that was a great part of the group, and sort of connecting as a team while we worked.
Absolutely. And Natasha, kind of on that track, obviously whilst trekking, we know that it's a huge physical challenge for you. But how much did you guys talk to each other? Did you kind of have to keep conversation going to keep team morale high? Or were you kind of earphones in and just focusing on getting it done?
So it all depended on the day and how tired you were. I think everyone took it in their stride and handled it their way. But mostly, some people had some earphones in, some people did their own thing. But everyone would chat amongst each other here and there. And we would also get to know each other really well and had a few chats about our personal lives. And it just started to feel like family, to be honest, because you would get to know people in a really in-depth sense. So yeah, most chats were fun, and then some days we would start asking each other questions like, "What would be your last meal on Earth if you knew you weren't going to be here tomorrow?" So it definitely varied. But yeah, it was fun. The best conversations that we had were at the tea houses in the evenings. So after arriving after a full day's walk at the tea house, we would first stop for some tea, and then we would go to our rooms to freshen up. And then afterwards, everyone would slowly make their way back to the dining room, and we would all huddle around the oven and just start to warm up. And that's where the best chats
I can imagine. And it must have been nice coming back together after a day of obviously a physical challenge and just feeling a little sense of achievement.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. And also, we didn't have any connectivity. Only in the dining room there was some Wi-Fi. Some days really not actually. So we had to talk to each other. We didn't have another choice. But yeah, we enjoyed it so much, and just getting to know people on a deeper level that you never would have gotten to know otherwise. It's something miraculous, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have to bear in mind that, some of our colleagues hadn't ever met before, or maybe met briefly in Barcelona, which was our K2 Kinetic conference. So yeah, it was kind of the first meeting for some of them. So Natasha, I think I already know the answer to this one. But whilst trekking, sort of how physical was it? How much effort did you have to put in to actually get through each day?
So for me personally, I can't talk for everyone. Everyone had their own experience. For me, physically, it was a little bit easier than I expected, to be fair. It's not because I'm extremely fit. That's not the case at all. I would like to say I am, but that's not the case. The guides that we had were absolutely amazing. So we had a main walking guide and a pacemaker, which his name was Cami. So Cami's main responsibility was to walk in the front and then do the pacemaking each day throughout the whole day. And he would also keep an eye on the whole group and adjust the pace where needed. And I can honestly say that this is the only reason why it was easier than expected. We had a lot of uphills and downhills each day. And then we also had what they call the Nepali flat, which is their flat terrain, which is not a flat terrain. It's a gradual uphill and then small downhills. So Cami would constantly change the pace according to the terrain, and he would also keep an eye on the group to see how we're feeling and change the pace according to that. So in my personal experience, it was a little bit more easier, but I feel that everyone could cope, and we all got to base camp, so it wasn't terrible. It was actually amazing.
It's such a great achievement that all of you guys reached the top. I mean, you must just feel so elated.
Oh, definitely. And there was so much emotions when we got there. We just all started crying and hugging each other because we just realized what we were walking for all these days and going through all the hardships that we went through. Just getting there and seeing the amazing views that we saw, it was truly something beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine. From what we saw, it looked like a beautiful moment.
Oh, it was stunning.
And then, Taryn, a big part of the volunteering project was obviously to immerse yourself in local culture and to kind of meet the local community. So what was that like for you?
I think that was it was eye-opening, Emma, in the sense that, you've already touched on sort of all being together in sort of in a situation or for a duration of time that, was longer probably than we would spend, family holiday typically, or time that you would take off work. So we were together for, sort of forming relationships, and as we've already said, people who hadn't met before. But for us to then be not just, on a holiday somewhere or in a sort of a fairly easy environment where you actually are immersing yourselves in a new culture, and having the opportunity to really meet, those at the school, the teachers, the children, some of the parents and the carers would come up to see what our progress was like each day. They were interested in what we were doing. It was incredible, because I think, typically, even going out to Nepal, you wouldn't get to go or to sort of be part of the communities that we had the opportunity to see and to be a part of. They were just that much more remote than you'd probably typically experience. So, just sort of seeing day to day what their sort of school day is like, how far some of the teachers have to walk in order to get to school, an hour and a half from remote villages. We had the opportunity to go down and visit one of the villages on a day before we left our first school to see where they lived, see what they farmed, and just get a glimpse into their lives was incredible. It really was eye-opening and quite refreshing. Just so much gratitude and generosity in the sense of giving of their time and their thanks, really recognizing and realizing how little a lot of those communities have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you such a unique insight, into their daily lives, something that you wouldn't get if you were to just go to Nepal on a holiday, or, it's just incredible to be able to sort of immerse yourself that much.
Yeah. And I even, I look back at some of the photos, and what it does is it just brings them to life. You remember some of the instances, some of the conversations, some of the things the children might have said, and really just what their day-to-day lives are like. So, it was great having that opportunity to be part of the community rather than just sort of going to a school each day and then coming away from it. The first project that we did, we actually camped on the school site. So we were there from the moment that we woke up, right through the day to having our meals and going to bed.
Absolutely. It really is memories made to last a lifetime. So a big question for you, Natasha. How do you feel since returning from the trip?
Oh, well, I must be honest. I'm very happy to be home and to be with my family and to be with my 4-legged children. But I think I'm happy to be home, but also sad because I find myself reminiscing back to the days that we had and the beautiful moments and the beautiful views that we had and the people that we met. Like Taryn said, you get such a great feel of the happiness that the people have and the thanks that they give. It's a constant feeling of happiness that I felt. And, so it's sad, but I'm sad but happy being back. But I think this is an experience that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And I'll always be able to reminisce back and look at the photos and just be so grateful that I have been part of this amazing experience.
Absolutely. And handy that we've got that GoPro footage too. We can always watch that back. And Taryn, how about you? What are your sort of thoughts since coming back?
I think similar to some of the things that Natasha said. It was wonderful to be back home and to reconnect and be with family and back in the office and talking about it. But I think there's an awareness. There are those memories, the things that I think about virtually on a daily basis, actually, which I've thought about quite a lot. It's not typically the case when you get back, say, just from a holiday. You might have some great memories. You've got some great photos. You did some great things. But there are conversations that come up, or there's things that I see or I do almost daily that sort of will jog a memory or something to think about or something to feel appreciative of or not take for granted. So, yeah, I think, I still feel that just like you've both said, it's something that it's a memory to last and an experience that you'll have forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, the whole Nepal expedition was created to support the K2 Foundation and all of the wonderful work that we are doing. So, Natasha, how do you feel about that cause? Did it make the trip extra special for you?
Well, it's just absolutely amazing, isn't it? Once you have the opportunity to be part of a project like we were, you truly realize how big of an impact it has. The cause was obviously to raise money for the K2 Foundation, but not only that, we supported the community in Nepal in different ways. And I think personally, the biggest realization I had was when we, as the trackers, had a tipping ceremony with our guides. So this was when we arrived back in Lukla on our last day before flying back to Kathmandu. And so for this ceremony, all the trackers contributed towards a big tip that was then split between all of the guides. And then also we donated some equipment that we knew wouldn't be used in the future. So they then split everything into piles and gave each pile a number. And they also did a ballot type of thing where each guide would pull a number and then get that pile. So with the pile, he also got then the tip that we gave all of them. But their faces just absolutely lit up. So it was the faces, the happiness, and then also the hugs and the thankfulness that they gave. But what definitely made it for me was the speech that they gave, where they explained what big of an impact just the trackers have on their community, and how amazing it is and what it truly impacts. So just thinking about it, we have this site in mind of raising money for a foundation, but sometimes you overlook that we are actually contributing to the community in such a big manner, and it truly makes them so happy. So just seeing their faces and being in their presence, it's just so heartwarming for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does put everything into perspective. So Taryn, I'm going to leave my final question with you. So what are your thoughts on companies developing CSR initiatives like the Nepal Expedition?
I wouldn't hesitate to encourage companies to consider or to think about doing something similar, whatever that looks like, for a number of reasons. Emma, I think, one is it's an incredible opportunity to really make a difference to the charity or charities or the foundation that is set up, like our K2 Foundation, to support some of the charities that we're working with and to enable that fundraising, I guess. It's also an incredible opportunity, for some of the communication and the messaging out to the organization, to employees, to, what can be done outside of our typical sort of day-to-day work environment or workplace. So, I think that's something that I've seen organizations and colleagues have the opportunity to get involved in to different, degrees, but typically it's a day out of the office, or it might be getting involved in a specific project. But yeah, I just think the relationships and the bonds and the connections that it creates, again, to Natasha's point, there were so many other aspects of what this trip enabled and brought to people, both in Nepal, but also to us as the K2 family. And then just rewarding, again, from a personal perspective, personal growth, people's families and them seeing families and friends, what can be done. This was an idea that Nick and Richard had and it became a reality. So I would just encourage other organizations to really think about what it is that, what their priorities are, where they're looking to support, and, what are the options? How could they do that? And based, I think probably, Natasha, we speak for the whole expedition team. I don't think there's anyone that didn't have the most incredible experience and probably wouldn't do something like that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely. I personally, I've had a chat with a few of the trackers afterwards, and we still stay in contact here and there, and everyone is still looking back, and they're still just so happy to have been part of this.
Absolutely. And who knows, we may have even inspired some other organisations to take on big CSR initiatives. So, Taryn, Natasha, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Emma.
Thank you for having us, Emma.
No problem at all. It was so great to catch up and relive some of those memorable moments. So for anyone that's listening and is keen to make a donation, our Just Giving page will be open. As we've touched on, the funds raised from the Nepal Expedition are going towards helping K2 to rebuild a school in Sao Paulo. Head to k2.foundation for more information about the foundation, the Sao Paulo School Project, and our global charity partners. Thanks for listening. Look out for episode 2 coming soon.